Hi, I'm Rachel Lancaster, and this is the Magnificent Midlife podcast. This is where we celebrate women in midlife and beyond. We challenge the status quo and bash those negative stereotypes about being an older woman. We're not over the hill at 40, 50, 60. We're just getting started. And the world needs us now more than ever. I'll be talking all things midlife, about issues that matter, and sharing fabulous stories of amazing women doing very cool stuff. Now's our time. My guest today is Elizabeth Solaru. She's the founder of Elizabeth's Cake Emporium and maker of luxury wedding cakes. I know Elizabeth has a fascinating story to tell because she's had multiple reinventions through her life, including a new one accelerated, I'm guessing, by the global pandemic that we're currently under. So Elizabeth, it's lovely to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me. I just feel absolutely excited to talk to you and your listeners. Thank you.
And we connected over the very new social media platform Clubhouse, didn't we? Because you heard me on there and then you reached out and then we connected. And it was just, I love the serendipitous nature of these connections that women make.
Oh, absolutely. For me, my first few weeks of Clubhouse was one of confusion. So I wandered from room to room. I can't even remember the exact room, but I just heard you speak and it really resonated with me. I love the authenticity of how you spoke, and I love what you said. It really resonated. So I thought, right, I'm going to reach out and contact you. And luckily for me, you responded very, very positively, because not everybody does. And I can understand that because people have got things they're doing with their lives. So thank you so much for responding very positively to me.
Oh, you're most welcome. As listeners to this podcast will know, I like interesting stories and I like to share those and inspire other women to know that, the sky's the limit. We can be and do whatever we want, really. So I know that you make the most incredible cakes, but you didn't start out doing that. So what was your first career?
Right. My first career was being a microbiologist. So I literally worked in a lab. I went to university, got the first of a couple of degrees. At that point, I got my BS and my master's. And then I went off to St. Mary's Hospital in Paddington, London, and I trained there for a year and a half, and I became a biomedical scientist. And then alongside that, I started looking into doing a PhD program. So trained at St. Mary's, then left and went off to Great Ormond Street Hospital, worked there as a senior scientist for many years. And then I kind of just decided one day that I didn't want to be a lab rat anymore. I just felt there was a lot more to life. So I thought to myself, what do I do? It all coincided with a number of very traumatic life changes. I got divorced at that point. I had issues when I was trying to give birth. Sadly, both babies died. So there was a lot of trauma there. And I just thought to myself, of course, I had to go back to work because work was stable. It gave me the stability, gave me an income, and I was able to get myself back on my feet after that traumatic loss. But then I thought to myself, there's more to life, so I needed to live. So I left my job. I will never advise anyone to do this. It was literally resigning, because when you're in a laboratory, you are assigned a certain seat, and you'd be in that seat and in that space for about 6 weeks until the next rotation. And you had to face a particular person every day for 6 weeks. And this person every day would talk about the same thing, what she was cooking for dinner. Now, there's nothing wrong with the conversation, and I was a willing participant in that. But I thought to myself, if I had to do this one more time, I will go crazy. And I remembered there is more to life. So I resigned, and people thought I had this amazing job lined up. I did not have a job lined up. And again, talking about serendipity, the following day, the phone in the laboratory rings, and anyone can pick up the phone, by the way. So it wasn't as if it was anywhere near me. I was literally walking past, it rang, and there was somebody at the other end, and he was ringing from an agency. And they used to do that in those days. They would ring up random labs, hoping to get someone who might be willing to do a locum job, which is like a temp, but you're just doing it as a scientist. They send you around labs in different parts of the country. So I picked up the phone, and the guy at the other end said, I'm from such and such agency, and I'm looking for a locum, and I know you're happy where you are, but I'm just ringing on the off chance. And I was like, right, this is the sign. And I'm like, by the way, I'm looking for a job. And it was, how soon can you start? And I said, as soon as my notice runs out, which is in a month's time. And he said, cool, we'll take you on. And that was it, really. That was the first step towards me leaving that behind. So obviously I ended up working for this agency for about 6 months, 8 months thereabout. And I then decided, okay, at least I can support myself, but I need to do something with my life. So I decided to do what I knew best, which was go back to university and study business. And the only business course I found was an MBA, and did the MBA. And that was what I'd call like the second part of my career.
And before I ask you about that, I just wanted to mark and to thank you for sharing that horrendously traumatic experience, because I've done the research on you, I've found all this out, but I didn't know that, and you've shared that, and thank you very much for doing that. And I can't really imagine there you are working in a children's hospital and having to cope with that. So I know you're a brave lady, but now I know you're even more of a brave lady. And I just wanted to say, before we go on to the next stage, thank you for sharing that.
I was just about to say thank you very much, because believe it or not, this is actually the third time that I've shared that publicly. And I never would have shared that if not for Clubhouse. And I know it sounds strange, but it was a part of me that I literally buried and kept hidden. And then what brought it to life was I entered into a room, my first few days of Clubhouse, and they were talking about maternal deaths, especially amongst Black women. It's 5 times the national average. It was 5 times, it's still 5 times the national average. And wandered into the room. I don't know what possessed me. I put my hand up and I was brought on stage to talk, and it just came pouring out of me. Now, the thing was, I did not realize how traumatic it sounded to people, because I've lived with it for over 25 years and I've never said a word, because I've just accepted it as part of me and I've come to terms with it. But to other ladies in the room, especially the young ladies, they were sobbing, and I was like, oh my God, what have I done? And somebody said something to me, which, I won't share here, but it kind of made me think, maybe this is my mission. Maybe I need to say something about maternal deaths, maternal health and possible maternal deaths, because at the moment, yes, some people are saying something about it, but there could be a bigger mission here. And as I said, this happened about a couple of weeks ago. And again, my life has taken a different tangent. So thank you for that. Thank you for acknowledging that.
It's very powerful when we share our truth. Really is so powerful.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for that.
And that's one reason why I do this. And, usually I get the most incredible guests on, and I'm feeling quite emotional myself now, but it's about sharing people's truth and the reality of life. And yes, I can absolutely know it was trauma, and you glossed over it quickly, and my heart stopped and was like, okay, I just want to mark the fact that you were brave and you shared that. And yes, maybe this is your new mission or part of your mission, and the time is right now, and perhaps it just wasn't right before, but now here you are and you're sharing with me, and I'm very grateful.
Thank you, because I think sometimes with trauma, you can't you've got to take your time, because if you've not gotten over it properly to the point where you can literally just talk about it, and it doesn't bring up it will bring up some emotion, but you don't feel as if you're being re-traumatized. I think that's the right time. But I think also knowing it could help other people, that is a huge part of it as well. Yes, so yes, you're right. And I think when you asked me the question, is, are you happy to share everything? Again, I thought this is another sign, because people never ask that. People never say, are you happy to share? And I was like, why not? For me, it was like, it just felt natural. So again, thank you very much for the platform.
Well, if we can do just something to raise awareness of this scandalous data about the rates being so much higher for Black women in the UK, I mean, it is a scandal. It should not be the case. So, whatever you say is going to have an impact on that. And the more you say it, it's going to have an impact. But it's at a huge personal cost to you.
Yeah, another thing, I'm very aware of is when we talk about these things, people shouldn't look at it as an attack on anybody, if that makes sense. It happens. There are investigations as to why it happens. But I think having this lovely dialogue like we're doing right now, I think it's very beautiful. And I don't want to feel as if I'm being attacked or you're being attacked. Not at all. It's just a conversation that we can say, this is a vital and very important topic. And even just raising awareness so people can say, why is that happening? What can we do? How can we support? How can we make sure this doesn't happen to somebody else? That is a nice, safe conversation rather than attacks, because I would hate to be attacked, so I'm very aware and very conscious of the fact that it's a dialogue, it's not a broadcast. It's not me just shouting out my message, but it's about me speaking my truth and then someone accepting that with love and grace. And I think that's what I'm trying to do. Speak the message with love and grace and not casting blame or just people coming together and helping.
But Elizabeth, most people, well, a lot of women will not know about that. I knew that stat because I'm involved in women's health and I've recently been looking and reading about the Black Lives Matter movement. So I've come across that statistic, but I've not come across somebody who's been directly impacted because of that state of affairs. And I agree, absolutely. We're not saying it is scandalous. I do think it's scandalous, but as you say, we're not blaming anybody, but we're saying exactly what you said. Why is this the case? And we need to work out. It's like, well, it's not the same at all, but I am always going on about, why do women have a different experience of menopause in different cultures? I want to know why. I want to understand why, when there's research done, that British women report the worst menopause experience of any group of women in the entire world. And instead of going, oh, here are some drugs to fix that, I want to say, why? Why is that the case? What is going on? So, absolutely, they're very powerful conversations that we can be having.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
I've got goosebumps now. Like this.
Absolutely. I think this is exactly the kind of moments that we, hope to have. I've also fallen into the age of menopausal women, and I've had the most horrendous, as in literally everything that can go wrong has literally gone wrong with my experience of menopause. And there's no end in sight. However, you're absolutely right. It's about having the conversations and going, okay, how can we move forward with this? How can we make the subject not be taboo? And how can we get other people, because we are representative of our society. We all live in this society. And I always felt that we get judged as a society as a whole on how we treat those we think are the least amongst us. I don't even think we should be thinking there are people who are the least amongst us. I think that is a true scandal, that there are people who are not even registering on our radar because we don't even think about them. However, we are judged as a society as to how we treat those we think are the least amongst us. And I think the menopausal thing, I think that's another massive scandal brewing, but at least we can say something. We've got platforms. Our mothers, grandmothers, they didn't even have the platforms to say anything. So yeah, I completely agree with you on that.
So where did we get to? We got to you going and doing another degree, didn't we? You went off and did your MBA.
Yes.
And then you went into a completely different career that wasn't anywhere near cake making. We haven't got anywhere close to cake making yet, or luxury business or any of that. So what did you do when you finished your MBA?
Right. Whilst I was doing the MBA, I kind of felt, because obviously I did it at the weekends. It was the first program of its kind in the UK. So you can do your Monday to Friday and then go study at the weekend. And a lot of us were doing the MBA so we can change our careers. But the business school wasn't offering that support so you could change your career. And I thought, oh, I don't want to have, 20, 30 grand worth of tuition go down the drain. I better help myself. So I don't know how I did it. I literally lobbied the school. And then they said, you know what, we haven't got any money to give you, but we will give you some space and we will give you an email if you can do something about it yourself. So I literally created a very tiny department called the MBA Careers Department in the business school whilst I was working, whilst I was studying. So I created that. I think the second year of the MBA, because it was a two-year degree. So created that. And I started reaching out to other business schools. So I reached out to the best business schools in the world. I don't know what possessed me. I reached out to Harvard, London Business School, INSEAD, name it, I reached out to them. And then I found that actually the big business schools, I thought they had loads of money to throw around. But no, they didn't have loads of money. It was actually the students who did all the fundraising for them. So they gave me so many pointers and tips. London Business School, the head of careers invited me over, had lunch with me, gave me a strategy. So anyway, mapped it out with no money. I started reaching out to all the alumni because I thought to myself, yes, I haven't got money, but there's masses of resources. So I reached out to all the alumni of the business school, reached out, and then I started creating career evenings for all the MBAs. But I was benefiting from it because I was heading up this, whatever it was. And then via that, I came across a recruiter, amazing man. He changed my life. Hamish Davidson, I am so grateful. And then he said to me, he said, look, I'm starting up my own. He used to work for one of the big four accounting firms. He headed up their recruitment. And he said, look, I'm setting up my own company and love your energy, love your passion. I can always train you. So do you want to join? So that's how I went from scientist straight to becoming a headhunter. And I was recruiting chief executives and chairmen and finance directors. And my first ever job was a finance director role. The organization had tried to recruit into that role 3 times before. They couldn't attract candidates. And I thought to myself, this is my first job, because they thought I was going to fail, actually. So they gave me that job, which is great. And the guy I was meant to be shadowing on the job, he literally disappeared. He literally left me holding the baby. So I thought, right, okay, I need to prove myself. And I saw opportunity. So what I then realized was we did manage to get a few candidates to apply for the job. But the problem was they needed to appear as finance directors. So it wasn't about their technical skills, because they were all good. It was about presentation skills and communication skills and how they looked. So I then got some friends. I had a friend who was an actor and an image consultant. So I got him to go around to all the candidates' houses, pick out their interview outfits, prep them for the interview in terms of projection and stage presence. And I did all that. I didn't tell my boss, by the way, did all that. So when it came to the final panel, my boss's expectations were so low because he thought, right, it's going to be same old, we're not going to be able to appoint. And he came out, and the first thing he did, he rang me, he said, really swore. He said, what the hell did you do? He said, I could not even recognize some of the candidates. So that's when I realized that coming at the job from a different perspective really, really worked, because in the headhunting world, it's not even who you know. You know, they say it's not what you know, but who you know. It's not even who you know, but it's who knows you. So everyone went to school with everyone. I was the new kid on the block. Nobody knew me. It's very male dominated. But I found certain skills that I had in doing things differently was actually working for me in this environment. So that was the start of my career as a headhunter.
What I should have said when I introduced you was, this is Elizabeth Solaru, Superwoman.
Not at all. It's more survivor. I had to put,
Oh my
I had to put,
goodness.
I had to put food on the table. You know, trust me. When you got to survive, you will get creative. When you have to survive, you will get creative. So it was mainly that. It was nothing. Anyone could have done what I done. You know, believe me.
And that's what's happening now, isn't it? With COVID, people are getting creative because, what is it? Creativity is the motherhood. No, something is the
Mother
mother of
invention.
invention.
Yes.
What is it?
Oh,
I can't think of the word. I'll
necessity.
have to find.
I think
Necessity is the mother of invention. That's it. We got there. That's it. Yes, I like that one. It's good,
yeah.
isn't it? Wow. And then at some stage you got fed up you must have got fed up of doing the headhunting, and you decided to make cakes instead. But not just any old cakes, but the most beautiful, luxurious, incredible cakes on the planet, it seems to me, because go and have a look at elizabethscakeemporium.com. Is that right?
Yes,
Is that the
or
website?
on Instagram, Elizabeth's Cake Emporium, and they'll find me on Instagram. Yeah.
The photos, I mean, you will be drooling. Well, first of all, you'll be gobsmacked, and then you'll be drooling. But they're just stunning. So, and I know you've written about starting this one with not a lot of money behind you as well. So what happened? Why did you make that move?
Right. It was a bit of a push and a pull situation. So this was around 2007, because I did my MBA around about 2000. So this is around 2007. And I need to explain this slightly. When there's a recession coming, certain things get hit first. Funnily enough, it was actually a business school professor that talked about a coming recession in 2005. So we kind of knew it was looming, it was coming. So it kind of hit the city around 2007, 2008. And I need to explain that working as a headhunter, you're assigned an amount. So mine could be £500,000, £1 million worth of business to bring in via recruitment. And there's a league table, which is published every week. So you see who's at the very top, who's exceeded their whatever it is, and then those at the bottom. And then those at the bottom, within a month or so, they get let go. So I always stayed in the middle. So the middle, I was comfortable because I didn't want to be a top performer. Because but I was, doing my best, working 12, 18-hour days, getting there early, blah, blah, blah. But I noticed that as the recession was hitting, my name was dropping more and more to the bottom. So eventually, I thought to myself, okay, I'm going to be having this conversation. And they said, look, redundancy, we're going to have to let you go. So I thought, and obviously you don't get paid any redundancy. So I thought to myself, okay, so there was redundancy, there was a milestone birthday, and then there were a couple of other factors. And I thought, if I don't do this now, I'll never do this. I haven't got any money anyway. So I haven't got nothing to lose. So I might as well go for it. So I started Elizabeth's Cake Emporium. And I remembered the first set of business cards that I printed, I didn't even know the name of the company. So I kind of made it up at the doorway of the printers. My sister came with me and I turned to her and I said, I'm going to call it Elizabeth's Emporium because it's 2 E's. And then later on, a good friend of mine who was into marketing, she said, Elizabeth's Emporium could be anything. Why not call it Elizabeth's Cake Emporium? And I thought, of course. So that literally is how it started, I promise you. So 2008, thereabouts, I went full time, started Elizabeth's Cake Emporium, and I thought, okay, what do I do? Because I have a business in name, but I've got no clients. So, and I had no money, obviously. So I thought, okay, I need to market this. Now, one of the skills that you learn as a headhunter, every week we were expected to call 100 clients every week. We're expected to make those phone calls. So 100 people every week. And it was recorded, by the way. And that's on top of your normal job. So I thought, okay, so I literally got the yellow pages. I don't know if it still exists. So got the yellow pages and I was calling people. And first week went by, nothing. So second week, I called a business called Party Planning. And there was this young girl at the other end and she said, do you make cupcakes? And I was like, of course we make cupcakes. As you do. I said, of course we make cupcakes. And then she said, oh, we've tried so many cake makers. Their cupcakes are not quite hitting the mark with our client. And I said, you know what? I'm going to be in your area in 3 days. I'm happy to drop some samples for you. And she said, oh, that'd be lovely. I will tell Lady Elizabeth that. And I'm like, in my head, I was like, who the F is Lady Elizabeth? I didn't think anything of it. And the reason I gave 3 days was I needed to borrow money. I needed to get the best boxes that I can find in terms of presentation. Obviously, I needed to create the decorations. So got the bus, went over to that part of London, delivered the cakes, and then got back on the bus because I thought to myself, I'm not going to stick around just in case they don't like me. But I noticed it was a private house. It was a nice private house, but it wasn't it was a big house, but it wasn't a Julie, it was a nice house. And then on the bus, I got a phone call and the young lady was, oh my God, Lady Elizabeth absolutely loves your cakes. She's raving about them. We've been eating them. They're amazing. Can you come back? We've got an order for you for 200 cupcakes. So I went back and then that was when I met Lady Elizabeth Anson, the Queen's cousin, who is a party planner.
Oh my goodness.
Now, I didn't know who she was at the time, but, as soon as she gave me her name, I said, okay, and remember in those days, our mobile phones were bricks. So it wasn't as if I could do a quick research. And then she said, we'd like to order 200 cupcakes. How much? Of course, I undercharged, ridiculously undercharged. I didn't factor in delivery I didn't factor in anything. I was just so excited. And then she wrote me a check from private bank. It was Coots. But I was too poor not to cash it. And I remember calling my sister saying, the first check, I've got a check from a private bank. Oh my God. So anyway, it was when I got home that I realized she's the Queen's cousin, the only person that can literally touch the Queen and hug the Queen. She doesn't want to, she cannot curtsy to the Queen. I was like, oh my God. So she was one of my first clients. So I made the cupcakes, delivered them, set them up, left. And then a couple of weeks after the event, I got this beautiful note back from her. And she said, she wants to help my business. So she said, feel free to use the quotes in this letter. It was so mind-blowing because that level of generosity and grace from someone who doesn't have to. And then that started my working relationship with her. I didn't work with her every month or every day or every week or whatever. It was maybe twice or 3 times a year. But using that quote on my marketing opened a lot of doors. It really, really did. And I did a number of events with her that obviously I can't talk about. But again, for me, it was just one of those acts of universal kindness. I never in a million years would have expected that from somebody like her. So that was the start of my cake career that has taken me round the world. I've had cakes delivered to palaces and I've done cakes on a yacht in the middle of nowhere. I've done cakes in locations where they take your phone off you, take out your SIM card and battery, so your location is not revealed, because there are credible terrorists and credible threats just being associated with them. So I feel really, really lucky to have had all that, especially with what happened with COVID. So I just feel really, really grateful to have had all that in my career, as well as being on TV, being on radio, etc.
And I'm guessing that maybe you didn't start out necessarily thinking you would go into luxury, did you? Or was it partly that this first connection sort of took you down that route?
Well, the funny thing was, the first connection took me down the route, but I didn't want to go willingly. I literally felt safer in the middle market because I was thinking about the client volume. I was thinking the more bookings I had, the better. So I really, really resisted. And it took until 2013 when there was another mini kind of, it wasn't a full recession, but there was something about that year, 2013. And I kind of thought to myself, Elizabeth, another sink or swim moment for you. And a lot of my competitors were actually creating cheaper cake ranges, so they were like, dumbing down or diluting down. And I decided to double and triple my prices and just go for that market. And I thought, if I'm going to die, let me die happy, let me die doing, at least knowing, let me try for the moon and I might hit the treetops. So I literally went with that in mind. And that was one of the things that really took me into the luxury market, because prior to that, there weren't many cake makers going for that market. There was one or two really established. They had beautiful addresses in West London. They had beautiful shops. I had none of that. In fact, I remember one evening, I wrote down everything I had working against me, and the list was so long. And I was thinking, excellent, that means my odds. Because I always do that. I always write the things that can go wrong. And because once I put it in writing and I face it, for me, there's an act there about facing all your disasters or everything that can go wrong. And then you say, right, okay, that's over and done with. Now, how can I make it better? So, yeah. I didn't start out thinking luxury. You're right.
That's fantastic advice, though, to put all your fears down. Because when they're floating around, they're much bigger. They have bigger power. You put them down on paper and you go, okay, well, we can deal with that one or forget that one or deal with it. Then it becomes more manageable, doesn't it? And yes, you can step forward and just go, okay, I'm just going to do it anyway.
Exactly. And you think to yourself, well, now that I know the worst that can happen, and I always say another thing is that, sometimes when it comes to failure, we hate failure, not because of, the way it makes us feel, not just that, but because failure is public, right? So because failure is public, there's rejection, humiliation, everybody knowing our business, everyone knowing you've not done really well. But I feel that if failure were private and we could hide it, we'd be walking around, advertising our successes alone all the time. So I feel the public nature of failure is actually a good thing. I failed. That means I can either start digging or the only way is up. So you need to choose what mindset or mentality you wish to adopt. But, so I embrace my failures in public. I would say if I failed in something or if a cake's collapsed or something, I will admit. People often say, oh, have you had any disasters? And I'm like, yeah, sure, loads. Where should I start? So, because there's no point in painting this really glossy, rosy picture of success. And, I've done cakes for queens or whatever. So what? What about the time you had that cake collapse and you were crying sitting down in the middle of your kitchen? So I'm an advocate for publicly embracing all your failures as well as your successes.
Good for you. Good for you. Very inspiring. Wow. And now you're having, I'm not sure whether you're having to, but I'm guessing there isn't a huge market for wedding cakes at the moment. So you're pivoting again, aren't you? So you're taking your expertise, although this is connected. You're not doing a blind leap of faith again. So which is very, very disappointing, Elizabeth. Why aren't you doing that again?
Well, it's called getting old. It's called getting old.
So tell me about your latest venture.
Right. So what happened was, my dad died in 2019, December. So in January, went off to bury him. back in Nigeria. And trust me, the funerals out there are like weddings, except instead of a cake, there's a coffin. I joke, but it really is like very big, very elaborate, especially if the person's deemed to be successful. So went off to bury him and everything, and came back thinking, okay, need to, get back into what I do, need to make my money back, blah, 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 blah. And then COVID hit. And when COVID hit, honestly, I had, so many cancellations, so many postponements. But when COVID hit, I knew in my head that we were not going to get out of it properly. So maybe 2022, 2023, because I used to be a microbiologist. I started reading medical journals. So I ignored the main press because the press were tying themselves in knots. And I ignored what the government was saying. So I went back to medical journals, and I was talking to colleagues, and I sat down and I literally plotted what would happen. And I remember saying to my sister, and by the way, my sister works with COVID patients because she's a senior intensive care nurse. And she was saying to me in January, February, she was saying, oh my God, it's bad, it's bad, it's bad. And I plotted it and I thought to myself, why are the airports not being shut down? Why are we not in lockdown? But then I remember that the government, this is the first time any government in any country has ever had to handle what was going on. So I was thinking, why are we not adopting the New Zealand model? But then COVID hit, and then I had a lot of colleagues ringing me up going, oh my God, what are we going to do? So the first thing I thought was, okay, we need to do something. So I approached another colleague who had a platform, and he puts on luxury events. And I said, right, we need to do events online to, one, reassure people, and two, be very honest about what's going to happen. So we created a luxury symposium. And then I remembered I did a bit more research, and I talked about 5 things we needed to be aware of. So we needed to talk about things like legal stuff, hygiene. With the legal stuff, for example, many people don't know that there's a COVID Act in the UK. And the COVID Act is what's governing all our businesses right now, and especially in the wedding industry. Because before government can say, you need to do this, it needs to be an act in law. So very complicated stuff. So again, I spoke about things like innovation. So there was a lot that we spoke about. And a lot of people were saying, oh my God, that's amazing. Do you do consultancy? And I thought, maybe it's needed. So I created it. I created a Facebook group, fairly informal Facebook group. It doesn't even have a name. That's how bad it is. And a lot of people were asking for advice. What do I do if I want to do this? What do I do if I want to do that? So based off that, I quickly put together a website. There are parts of the website that are still not populated yet, but I will get round to it. But my point is, it was having to act last year and try and get my new offering together and know exactly where I wanted to go with it. So right now, I help businesses who maybe they just started a business, or they've been running the business for a while, but they want to enter into the luxury space, because despite everything that's going on right now, the luxury market is still holding strong. Yes, there are losses. Some people are reporting losses in certain sectors like fashion and retail, but there are other parts of the luxury business like super yachts. People are buying loads of super yachts. People are still, I know, right? People are real estate over £5 million is actually doing brilliantly. So that tells me that there is a segment of the population, whether you feel badly about them or not, is irrelevant, because these are the people that are still spending, and that is trickling down to artisans like me. So my point is, if people want to come into the luxury sector, now's the time to do it. Now's the time to literally level up and accelerate business. So that's why I'm doing what I'm doing now. So yes, you're right. COVID has a lot to do with that.
Sounds like a brilliant idea, because yes, I mean, the people who have the money, they've not got so much to spend it on. And they're probably going to be therefore open to spending it where they can spend it. And they have a luxury mindset anyway. So, and any of that
as you say, it's going to trickle down into the economy and help everybody, technically, eventually.
But the issue is, people often, the one question I get asked the most is, how do I find rich clients? How do I find luxury clients? Because I've kind of felt that maybe I've taken for granted the fact that I kind of hit that market straight away, although it took me a couple of years to literally embrace it fully. So I've done lots of things that other luxury people are not doing, even luxury brands. They are not categorizing their luxury clients. They're just treating everyone the same, as in they got money, that's it. But no, no, no. There are different types of luxury clients, there are different mindsets, and it's just a question of appealing to your particular niche or your particular person within that whole niche. So I talk a lot about that. And my latest blog, I use a reality TV show called Bling Empire. I use that to categorize the different types of luxury clients. And people are like, oh my God, the penny's finally dropping.
Well, I haven't spent very long with you, but I can already see that what you do and the theme that comes out from each stage of your life is that you just look at things differently. You come from the side. So there's your problem in front of you, and you come round the edge. It's like, okay, we're going to come round the edge, or from that direction, or from whatever direction. But you're always asking the question, why? And you're being curious, and how can we figure this out? And that is just perfect midlife woman behavior. I just love that, because I want women to not go, oh, this is the way it is, therefore can't do it. No, I want women exactly as you're doing to say, okay, I need to find a solution. What am I going to do next? How am I going to do this? And to be open to possibility, to be open to exploring. So, you're just my perfect guest.
Oh dear, thank you so much. But then if you think about it though, when I was much younger, probably before before and after I came out of university, before I had that walk away from my lab job moment, I would have never, ever, ever in a million years done half the things I've done. And that's because of conditioning, cultural conditioning, because, I'm of African descent. And when a child is born, asking is it male or female has heavier connotations than it does in the West, because everybody wants a boy. And so female children are kind of, you're a child, but then you're not that important. So the attention and resources is actually concentrated on the male child. So you would either have to.
I don't think that's just Africa. I'm saying Africa.
Oh
I
dear.
think, yeah, I've seen that here.
Oh dear.
But we won't go into that.
But so my point is, as a woman, you either have to accept and go along to get along, or you can just find a different way of going about things. And I believe lots of women did, women, Victorian women, Edwardian women, so many strong and powerful women, but they wielded their power in different ways. So for me, I kind of felt that, you know what, I've only got one life. And society or parents or culture, they've already lived their life. So this is mine. I need to really, and that's why I talk about embracing failure, because I could easily have failed, and I have failed a number of times. But if I wasn't comfortable with failure, one whiff of failure would have sent me running back to what was safe and familiar, even though it wasn't what I wanted.
I always say that to fail, it's the first attempt in learning. And we can't do anything really worthwhile without failing, can we? Because how are we going to learn without failing? And it's not failing, it's first attempt in learning.
Exactly. I love that. I love that. I love that. So yeah, absolutely. And I just feel that once you decide on what you want to do, I think just go for it. Just be scared, be frightened, be fearful. But I believe you need to be all those things in order to be courageous, because you can't be courageous in a vacuum. Because a lot of people think that, the opposite of fear is courage. No, it isn't actually. You can be fearful, but you can have courage despite your fears and despite those failings and despite the voices in your head going, are you crazy? Why? It's not safe. Because I've always believed in the two voice theory of the sage and the saboteur. And the sage is the one that, the positive, the joy, happiness encourages you. And the saboteurs, there's so many of them. They're always on your shoulder going, oh my God, who do you think you are? But you've got to go with that voice that tells you to go for it, despite what the saboteurs are saying.
Thank you for listening to this episode of the Magnificent Midlife podcast. If you enjoyed it, please subscribe, share it, and leave me a review wherever you're listening. It really helps me get the message out. You can find out more information about this episode in the show notes at magnificentmidlife.com. That's also where you'll find strategies, support, and resources to help make your midlife magnificent. Get clarity on how to make the most of your next chapter. Help me change the world, one magnificent midlife woman at a time.